events like hailstorms or weather patterns that may affect claims. Monsanto acquired a company called the Climate Corporation for $1.1 billion a few years ago. And IBM too has a lot of interest in this space. Today, with new technologies like satellites, drones, and inexpensive sensors, we have new ways of acquiring and aggregating that data. So it's not just your Google weather forecast that's important, but Frizzle puts it out there for a change. And I have founders Anantha, Abhilash, Vanya, and Rishith with me. Hey guys, what's up?
Hello.
How are you?
Hello, Vishal. How
Good,
are
I'm
you?
good. Hello, Vishal.
Hi.
So I absolutely love what you're doing, right? It's massive, right? I mean, you're sitting out at PES University. The things that you've done, I've been, visiting you for 2 months. I've just become a big fan. So, you have to tell us what's with weather, man. I heard the turtles and tortoises are out, but what's the story with you guys? How did you guys meet each other? How did you fall in love with each other? Or should I say, how did you fall in love with the weather? Go for it. Who's going to go for this?
Hey, go ahead for it, man.
Go, Abhilash. Go for it.
I see what you did there for the tortoise and tortoise, Vishal.
Yeah, because they come out when the weather's fine. You know what I mean. Go.
Yeah.
Well, in college, the first 1 or 2 years of college life, apart from academics, is experimenting your trust and comfort zone with different type of people you meet, right? And you try to make friends, you try to gather a group of people that you can socialize with. So the first 2 years is kind of like, an experiment, right? You could say. But when the four of us met, I don't think it was an experiment. It was just a click like this, right? The way we were comfortable with each other, the trust level that we had with each other is actually what got us together, right?
That was at the university itself.
Yeah, it was at the university itself. Rishith and Anantha knew each other back in school as well. They both went to Narayana, right?
Oh yeah, we all know the stories from there. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then Vanya and me came into the group when we all joined PES University. And,
I heard you met at an event though, right? At a Google event or some AWS event or something of that sort.
Yeah.
So you guys are all developers then, Abhilash?
Yeah, right now, we are doing a lot of exploration with the new streams, but at the beginning, we were all developers, in different fields, IoT, AI, ML, big data, whatnot, like any college student, right? It was to experiment at the beginning. And we did that. All of us were developers. And then Google DSC had organized an event for, developers to use Google platform, see how to use the cloud, whatnot. So that's when the four of us actually met. It was through mutual friends, and that's how we four met each other, and we became really close after that, right? It was a second home.
That's interesting, Anantha. So, is that how it began? How did the idea come about? I'm really curious. Did Abhilash come to you and talk about the idea? Did you pick it up and say, okay, this is how we're going to execute it?
So the initial, I think the light bulb was from Abhilash because he used to travel in auto, metro, and all that stuff. So one thing happened, and all of us being college students, we used to use public transport as our way of commute. And there have been at least one instance where weather, like especially rain, literally screwed with our schedules, and even destroyed few parts once in a while. So I think it was more of a collaborative effort, saying, okay, see, this is a big problem. The current weather apps are not cutting it out for us. I think we should do something about it. I think that's where the initial thing came from.
Okay, now to the difficult part of the program, which is about how are you solving this better than others, right? Vanya, I want you to tell me this. What is this all about? I've seen your device. It's a bloody rugged device. It is for the field. It is made for the field. That means corporations would like what you built, right? It's long lasting. It's an edge device. It's strong. So what encompasses everything in it? What are you solving for?
Right. So if you take a look at the weather forecasting scene today, it's very generalized to like large areas. So if you look at your phone's weather app, you can see what the weather is for Bangalore, maybe a large area, your locality, but you can't actually pinpoint what's the weather at my place, what's the weather at my location. And so not having that kind of information, it's not useful or reliable enough to make decisions on. So the reason for weather forecasting being the way it is actually that currently about 60% of the globe isn't covered by ground-based weather radars. So this means that current weather providers, they're forced to rely majorly on satellite data, and they follow a top-down approach. But this has its limitations as to how hyperlocal it can get, which is why it works well for, say, a city level, but not so much as, what's the weather at my house. So we at Frizzle, we found a better way to solve this problem. We took a bottom-up approach by using, as you've mentioned, a combination of hardware and our own software. So coming to the hardware, we've developed our own portable smart weather stations. So what this does is it collects and transmits environmental data like temperature, humidity, pressure. We can even track the cloud movement through a camera we have on board. And so all of this data collected by these stations is then fed in as a feedback loop to our own proprietary AI/ML model. And this has been trained on about 40 years worth of historical data. So we're able to give weather forecasts that have a resolution as low as 300 meters. And anywhere between a time range of, say, 5 minutes from now to 6 months into the future. So to
Wow,
give an
that's
example,
pretty interesting. Yeah, you should give an example. I'm now going to structure it like this, right? After that example that we talk about, I want Abhilash and Rishith to step in and talk about, the software part of the piece and how important it is, and the AI that comes in or the ML that comes in, and why it's different from any consumer company out there, right? And why you're solving a problem that is mission critical, which Anantha, you could also answer. Vanya, over to you. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you could tell me about that example. That sets everything in context.
Yeah, so one of these examples, like one of the personal examples was last November, I'd gone to Virajpet on vacation with my friends, and we were staying at Club Mahindra. So if you remember back in November, there was a lot of unusual rainfall for that period.
Absolutely.
So all of us were quite worried, what if this hampers some of the outdoor activities we had planned? So I thought, hey, why not take my device along with me for the vacation and see if our weather reports could help us plan around our vacation. So that's what we did. I ended up taking one of our hardware devices on with me along with that trip. And so we forecasted intermittent spells of rain for the duration of our stay there. And I made sure to plan all the outdoor activities in between those spells of rain. And it actually worked. It ended up working really well. So we ended up not missing out on a single activity we had planned. So
that's interesting.
that was
so
one of the.
You tested it on your own for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. But now, Vanya, I just want to quickly talk about how can corporations use this, because that is more super important to me. And I'm sure this video will be watched by several of these corporates wanting to work with folks like you. Tell me the current conditions on which a company uses weather. I think they don't use it at all in many cases. Could you tell us some of the use cases where this can be implemented, and what sort of go-to-market processes that you're following at this point in time? Anantha, you could pitch in too, because you're part of the business team too, right? So go on, Vanya.
So okay, go
Vanya,
ahead.
you can start. You can start. I'll follow up with whatever you have to say.
Yeah. So actually, this Club Mahindra experience of mine, I ended up speaking to the general manager of the resort after that stay, and I told him, like, this was my experience. I think a lot of your guests at your resort could help with this kind of service. And so he seemed actually pretty interested with that. And we set up a demo period with them. And we're actually currently in talks for them to utilize our services soon. So that was one aspect where, it helps both everyday individuals like you and me. And it also helps and ends up benefiting corporations like Club Mahindra.
Okay. Anantha, you want to add, it can go to any sort of company in the agri space.
Yeah.
It can go to companies in the real estate space, logistics, right? Which is where you have many pilots at this point of time. You guys are experimenting. You want to talk about the use cases that you want to go after and why?
Sure. So weather as a whole has applications in various industries. Just to name a few, as Vishal, you were telling, number one is the agri and production space. Most of our country does rely on farming for their livelihood. And as we all know, weather plays a huge role in agriculture. Second is, of course, events and hospitality, like Club Mahindra. There are other hotels as well, and even restaurants and resorts that try to use weather services in a way that can actually positively affect their business. And one of the other major categories we're going after is the retail and logistics space, on-demand services, for example, that can actually forecast demand based on weather, and of course, give customers that are availing these services push notifications based on the weather, or even more accurate
So let me
PTIs.
take an example. If I'm a trucking company and
Yeah.
I have to route plan across the country, I
Yes.
can make sure that my asset, which is a truck, runs efficiently based on the weather.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
So one of the applications in the trucking space is, of course, once the driver puts in the waypoints, we could tell them to reroute or even take precautions based on the adverse weather conditions on his route. This not only makes the driver more comfortable, but also safeguards any sort of merchandise they're carrying along the way.
This is absolutely mission critical, right? That's
Yes,
the reason why you've been also telling me that we want to take care of mission critical applications.
yes.
And this cuts across industry. Would it work in a setup around, say, a warehouse, a cold chain also?
Yeah, so definitely, as we can say this, so some part of the agri and production industry consists of storing these, perishable goods in warehouses or cold storages, and knowing the weather in advance could help them save up on refrigeration costs, or even sometimes on the, exactly planning when to give out what type of produce. This could actually help them even start planning from the agri side of things, so they can control
Supply.
and forecast the demand on that. Yes.
Okay, interesting. So I want you to correct this one point. Most of them would then come and say, no, we have temperature control boxes or these silos on top of the trucks, right? So they too have some form of sensors, but they're internal temperature. They're not external, right?
No, yeah, definitely not. So what Frizzle does, we are more of a weather forecasting company. So alerting these companies beforehand of the weather conditions that are going to come to them can be high temperature, really high humidity, or even, adverse precipitation that we forecasted in their area. It could really help them not only take precaution against such warehouses, but also make sure these sensors they have in place for internal monitoring don't fail.
That's interesting. I mean, I wanted to know one more thing about this aspect, right?
Sure.
How have Indian businesses taken to this? In a sense, I know you're only 3 months into your sales cycle. Vanya, you could pitch in here too. The tech guys, Abhilash and Rishith, I'm going to come to you soon. Be a little more patient.
No worries.
And both of you are wearing red, I see. So just hang on there. So yeah. So how do corporations get a hang of this? I mean, I'm sure selling this within an Indian ecosystem, do you guys get sidetracked, or people want to have deeper conversations, or what is the typical conversation you want to have from these people who are watching this or want to work with you? Because you don't want them to just brush you off as another vendor, because you're an insights company. You're not some gadget that's going to go fit there or sit there and then they say, okay, they've experimented, nothing. You have really worked hard on the inside. So what type of conversations would you like to have with these guys? Or what are some of the things that businesses have to keep in mind when they meet Frizzle?
So I think definitely one thing is, of course, really good about when we talk to most businesses is they're immediately receptive to the idea of new use cases coming up. Like what I mean by that is exactly, I'll be honest with you, weather as a service in India has not been explored a lot yet. It's really booming in the US and Europe markets, and many companies have done really well in that space. But in the Indian context, it doesn't work for, let's say, one or two reasons. But what I can definitely say is most of them are receptive towards these use cases we bring them. Like an example could be for the logistics company or for any logistics company, one of them we're talking with. One use case was, see, with our weather forecast, you can accurately alert your driver of any weather adverse conditions so they can prepare for it. And you can even push these updates to your customers so they're not disappointed if their package arrives a little late. And some of them have thought about things like this and don't have any services to solve that. And we are effectively bridging that gap now. The awareness is starting to come with most businesses as well, as weather is a deciding factor in a few good, few mission critical applications of their businesses.
Okay, I think you're in you've deployed in 8 places in and around Bangalore. You're also exploring other regions. You're already in Coorg. I think you're in some parts of Karnataka already. I'll come back to the business in some more time. But now I want to talk about the tech and the software piece, right? Rishith, I want to start with you. Talk about why this is an interesting problem to solve, because the fancy thing is most of the engineers want to go work for these larger companies, but you stuck on as co-founder with this lot here, and Abhilash and you are building something that's unique. And one of the points that I want to bring here is 40 years of weather data, right? That becomes a basis of your algorithm, right? I mean, what did you spend a good part of 7 months working on it? What languages did you use? How did you make sure that it really generates insights? I'll open it up to you guys. Go on, Rishith, Abhilash. Who wants to go
Yeah.
first? Rishith, go for it.
I'll go for it. Yeah. So coming to our, let's say, our main piece that currently differentiates us, that's the hyperlocal weather engine, as we call it. So this is essentially trained over 40 years worth of historical data. But as we know in the machine learning space, junk in, junk out. So it's what we do with the data is what distinguishes us. Getting the right sort of feature parameter or feature sets that would, not only, represent all the weather patterns, but also not lose out on the key patterns that that would distinguish what the weather might be. For example, by what I mean by that is, us as Frizzle, we're a hyperlocal weather forecasting company, and a lot of our use cases are short-term forecasts. That is, they want to know at this point, at this location, what it is going to be. So us trying to derive that particular sort of right feature set from this 40 years worth of data is where most of our chunk of time has gone. Then coming to the algorithm itself. So that is essentially a combination of, hit and trial, or, or what do I say? It's not just one algorithm.
Abhilash, you can support him. Go on. Hit. What do you mean by hit and trial?
So hit and trial. See, I've been in the ML workspace for about 2-3 years now, right? And one thing that I have realized is that nothing is certain in ML. Nothing is, right? And what he means by hit and trial is, if you see that you have got a result, it's probably wrong. If it's good also, right? So hit and trial is more about working with.
Is it a false negative or a false positive?
It's everything. It's honestly everything. It depends upon how we are building the algorithm. We have had cases like that. We have had multiple cases like that, because in weather forecasting, the way we design the AI algorithms are really important, right? Because we have to look at those false positives. We have to look at those false negatives, right? And the way we have built the algorithm has to be hit and trial, because once you reach that one particular algorithm, I'm pretty sure Vanya and me, we both work on the ML algorithm. We have done at least, I could say, 50 to 60 different kinds of iterations to even come to the base model that we could have built, right? To get the base ML algorithm that we have got. And even now, we are in the process of improving with the hyperlocal weather stations that we keep outside to create this feedback loop, right? To help with the short-term forecast. So the keyword here is hit and trial. Right, and I'm pretty sure that's why you asked the question.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Even now we are still in the hit and trial phase. The model we have right now is a hit. Now we have few more trials to go and see where the next hit comes. Right, and that is how we are building the algorithm. And I think that's the keyword.
Okay, say if I put both of you in front of investors, right, and what are the typical questions that people would ask you? What are you prepared for? For example, this is I think this is mission critical software, right? Because you're helping companies make money or save time even, right? So how important is for your algorithm to be tested by these folks get to use it first, and what you do a 3-month pilot with them and then say, look, this is the value we do for you. Therefore, our software works. You have to sign up with us. Do they get it? What are some of the questions they ask on pilot? What are some of how do people understand this at all though?
Yeah, so at least the way we go about, at least for the way we reach out to customers is, we usually identify some sort of use case, and then we picture to them how they might be possibly using. For example, Frizzle as itself is a weather forecast provider. So we provide forecasts in various formats, it being dashboard, WhatsApp, email, push notifications, even weather reports, and finally API integrations. So based on each customer's requirements, we suggest that this is the way we see using your product. Maybe go on, try out with this. If not this, try out something else. And we usually we're always in touch with them before the trial and after, to see how well and what other use cases they have identified from using our products. We've had few instances.
I want to throw a googly to you guys. I want to ask you guys this. Anybody can pick this up. Vanya, Anantha, Abhilash. So say I fall in love with the software. I say, guys, I have a lot of edge devices deployed in the field. Can your software sit with us? I will pay you as a SaaS. Is that also possible? Or would you say, no, you have to plug into a device like the edge device that you have also?
What's your question, Vishal? If a third party has
Say,
hardware already.
say I'm a corporation, I've deployed lots of devices that has captured various information already, but it has open APIs, but I just want your software because then I can still use your services and insights as dashboards. Is that a possibility too? Just asking, because some of the businesses would want this answered.
So I think my co-founders as well can add to this answer that I'm going to
Please.
say. So mainly, in a way, yes, because at the end of the day, the plain API integration is what drives most of most SaaS sales. And this API integration is from the hyperlocal weather engine. The device that we deploy offers only two things. Two important things. Number one is where we have deployed it, the client has requested probably for the data from his property. And number two, they want even higher accuracy forecast. So our devices can stand in parallel with their network and our API services too.
Okay, got that.
I mean,
that's
we're
nice.
Getting, and as long as we're getting the way we want the data, I don't see why we shouldn't be able to provide.
You can. So you're saying you're flexible and you can do all that. This is fantastic.
As long as it fits our, the way we have gone about it, yeah, definitely.
So all they have to do is understand your way of solving. The methodology doesn't change, and that fits in with your ethos, their ethos. You're okay with that. That's phenomenal. So, that's very flexible of you guys. Very nice.
Yeah, so the architecture, so I think Rishith can expand a bit more on this. So, but the architecture that we've developed for this entire process of weather forecasting, where, these devices send in the data in real time in a feedback loop to our weather engine, hyperlocal weather engine, where, that in real time churns out these weather insights is something that's really cool and something we feel really proud of doing because it's innovative in this space. And yeah, Rishith, you can tell a little more about this because I feel
go on, Rishith, quickly.
Yeah, so the hardware itself, let's say how or why we have gone about this is, if I ask you what's the weather like, the first thing you'll do is look up. So there's a camera on board which essentially is looking up. So this gathers, the cloud type, the amount of cloud cover, the sunlight, the sun movement, amount of duration, etc. So this device essentially collects all sorts of weather parameters that we have, being temperature, humidity, pressure, rain, and whatnot, and then feeds it back to our database, where we then use this data to make our predictions. Now, what's interesting is that as and when we go on expanding non-linearly, we'll have a huge network of data that's present. So this huge network would essentially be like a building blocks of, let's say, the smart city of India. Why I say that is, this hardware can have sensors plugged onto it. For example, let's say I'm in a farm that has a hyperlocal weather station. The farmer says, I want to somehow monitor my air quality or my soil quality. So all he needs to do is just plug in the sensors, tell us what he needs to calculate, and then we can immediately feed this data back. So as and when more devices are being collected, we have a huge data repository that's being stored. So then we can then go about DaaS, that is data as a service. Then we can then provide this data itself to other providers who might then, depending on their use case, they can then go about expanding. The sky is the limit.
Yeah, the sky is the limit. And I'm glad you said that. Abhilash, and the sky is the limit with the software as well, right? I mean, are you using Python for this, or are you using a combination languages? What are you doing?
Yeah. So,
and the dashboards, I want to know UX, who designed the UX also? Go on.
Yeah. So the software, I'll go ahead with that, and Rishi will go ahead with the UX. Our entire code base is primarily built upon Python, right? For multiple reasons. One is because of the flexibility that it can provide. Two is that we need to make these systems as efficient as possible, these algorithms as efficient as possible. And to deliver the ML algorithms that we have given, Python seems to be the best suited for the same, right? That could help us solve these issues. And later it's integrated with our dashboards that Rishi will tell and explain exactly how it's done. But yeah, that's the key to the software is the Python program.
And me as a corporate gets an app, a Frizzle app that I download, or I obviously integrate onto my team's mobile phones, right? And that's where the experience comes in, right, Rishith?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we can integrate in various methods. It's not just the app or rather the dashboard. We can then give you, PDFs that you can send to your operations team who then make the decisions. Or if there is a very huge use case, for example, logistics, these are the people who have orders coming in roughly tens of thousands per second or per minute. So the decision making for them needs to be automated. So for them, APIs would make a lot of sense. So all they need to do is just call our APIs, feed this information that we provide to them, and then they can then go about making decisions, not for one, but for thousands at once.
Okay,
So
I'm sold on this. I'm sold on this. So what I'm saying is we have to make sure that as a company now, I have to pay based on the device cost, which is an annual cost or a recurring cost, right? Is it a long-term contract that I've signed up with you? And then I pay you on a SaaS basis on the amount of reports I generate. Is that how it works? Who's going to take this? Vanya, Anand?
Anantha will take.
Yeah.
I think let me explain how we go about offering. Then Anantha can talk about it.
That'll be brilliant.
So right now our offerings are in two methods: software only and software plus hardware. So the software itself, from our ground testing, now that we've been roughly 2-3 months in the market, when compared to when we compare it to our other competitors, their accuracy is roughly 20 to 25%. Us, without the hardware itself, we're like 55. And when we add in the hardware, it jumps up to 91. Now you might ask why the hardware is required. So some clients, they have a requirement of, say, hey, Rishith, I need the real-time data from my location. For example, maybe a farm would be a perfect use case for that. I would also require a higher accuracy forecast, since I'm a farmer and my whole livelihood is dependent on this. That is why I would go about us suggesting the hardware. So the hardware is more of a good to have, not a need to have. But our software itself is so much better that so I would leave it.
I got it. Go on, Anand. Go for it now. Vanya, go on, Ad, because I want to understand now with the business model. I want to ask Vanya also, how difficult has the sales process been, or the early experience, because you're first-time founders, right? Go on, Anantha, quickly.
So the sales process, that's a tricky question.
The business, let's start with the business model. Quickly, you can't run away from that.
Sorry. So a plain thing is SaaS, as Rishith stated. Software, we do offer it as a service per monthly, people pay for it. But some cases, when they do want the device to be deployed, this is actually good for us when device is good to have, because we don't put in the capex to get a lot of inventory, or we don't even market it.
Correct.
So when they want the device, we lease it per month, and that's comes into the software plan as well. Or sometimes we even offer the device for free, depending on how long the contract is for. And that's how it goes. So the device is a one-time charge or release, and then it's a software-based service.
Why don't you show us the device?
Yeah.
By the way, I think this is a complete, show it to us. Show it to us a little more. It's a complete made in India product.
Yes.
And they've just not just assembled it in India, they've just gone and built this here locally, all out of Bangalore. So I think you must support this. If you guys are into devices and such things, no pun intended, but as a corporation, right, using this data using this device for insights, go for it. Go use, otherwise just go for the software, right? That's a great device. It's pretty rugged. Now I want to quickly go to the sales process, right? Vanya, how tough has it been for you? Has it been easy? Do people diss you? Do people, shun you away? What's been some of the early experience, and how are you going to solve it?
So I think earlier on, when we started out our sales process, we thought that the value we were providing would come immediately. We thought people would immediately kind of understand, like, okay, this is how we can use it. But because they hadn't experienced such a service before, or even thought about how to incorporate such a service into their operations, it was a pretty big concept sell for us, more than the SaaS and the business model and everything. We needed to really sell this concept of, hey, weather is impacting your operations. By giving this data to you, you can make things much, much better. So that process takes quite a long time. So you take maybe a few more calls, a little back and forth, where they talk to their teams. We come back and verify with ourselves, can we do this thing, what they're asking us to do? So it's a pretty long process for us, and it's definitely, we're getting better at it as and when we're getting more, say, demos.
No, that's wonderful. I heard about you outside, right? Somebody told me about you. And when I came in and I met you guys, I was still under that perception. But it took me only a couple of days to figure out that, yes, makes so much more sense. And I wish you all the best, all of you. But now we have to get into this question of funding, right? You guys have been funded by Co-Create PES Venture Labs, right? You've raised up to 200K, right? What's been the experience like there? And how important is it to have some kind of early support systems? right? Did they help you with the hardware? Did they help you with, what kind of pieces did they help you with? I know you guys have got a nice office also, but what are some of the learnings from them? And why is it important for such programs to emerge in India?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. Starting up in university was, purely coincidental that we were students.
Right.
And actually, I'll answer this question from the way how it happened with us, and
Yes,
that'll give you a greater understanding of what this means and what it entails for future student startups. So basically, what happened was we had the idea, as Abhilash told, and at that time we never thought of starting up. It was unheard of at this age. Some few instances were there, but we weren't ready to take that leap of faith yet. So what we had done was built up a few prototypes of our own. And I'm not even kidding. Our first prototype was a mess of wires and a few boards hanging off my balcony and a rudimentary ML model that could forecast temperature. So we were like, okay, this is some progress. And at that time, writing a research/journal paper was the big thing in college. All the professors would think, okay, smart person, we can talk to him and all that stuff. So we wrote about a 15-page document and submitted it to, a Springer journal. The editor came back to us and he's like, and I quote, guys, if I may, this is not a research project kind of thing. There's more of a product. So that's when the actual light bulb came into all of our heads. And we were like, he's actually right. Why not? And I'm not even kidding. A few weeks of discussions and arguments later, we were all ready to at least, start up and try to figure out how to make this an actual product and, help people with this. So yeah, and here we are.
That's serendipity for you, right? You would have just thought, okay, let's get this paper out and move on.
Yeah.
So that's how the PES guys discovered you, the Venture Labs folks.
Yeah, so I'll let you know how that went. After a stage of our prototype building, we were like, okay, we talked to a few people and we knew there was interest in this. So we're like, we need to take it to the next level. As bootstrapping it till we did was enough till then, but we needed to take it to the next level, industry level experience and stuff like that. So we were looking for various incubators or various accelerator programs that could help us. And I think we were searching for a good 2-3 months. And at the end of the third month, when we were not giving up, but it became very slow, we got a mail from the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship from our college saying, PES Venture Labs is, starting up at your college and, in partnership with Co-Create Ventures, send in your ideas and stuff. I'm not even kidding when I say this. We didn't wait until the Google form came out. We just spammed them with our pitch deck. I'm not even kidding. That might be very bad in some cases, but okay, I guess
it's good to spam people sometimes. It gets their attention. How many times did you spam them to get their attention?
I think we spammed our pitch deck almost 10 times to a person in the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And then he had connected us with Mr. Suresh, who then we eventually pitched the idea to. And I got to say, out of most of the investors we talked to, Suresh was one of the people who actually resonated with the idea. Because
Suresh is the founder of Co-Create Ventures.
Yeah. So not even as soon as we started pitching him the idea, he was like, I have actually thought of this. Weather is, an important factor in our day-to-day lives. Everybody uses it, but, nobody has monetized it yet in this country, or, it's still a up and coming sector. So he started resonating with the idea and, all that stuff. So we knew he was the right fit to help us take this forward. And coming to what incubators at our stage provide is, I'm not even kidding, more than the financial support, it's rather the industry level connects and experts you get to consult on your product.
For example, you got somebody to work on the design with you, right?
Yeah. So this hardware design was not a first trial. This is I think the 7th or 8th iteration. So we worked with various industry specialists. We worked with a hardware design who worked in the industry before. He worked in Bosch and other companies, and he gave us a lot of insights, on how to design a product you might place in the environment, how to actually safeguard it from things. And not only on the hardware side of things, or not only on the product side of things, but one thing that we learned a lot for sure is from this time we've been in PVL and stuff is exactly how to build a business. Like, what are the ins and outs of, your
You're getting used to filing your GSTs and all that.
well, those actually, many people think that's like the main hard part when you set up a company, but those are the easiest things. Your compliances are one of the easiest things you can do. The hardest thing is figuring out your market fit. Does your POC resonate with your customers? What are their feedbacks from it? And I'll be honest with you, us getting the feedback from our customers was very overwhelming because we had no clue what to do with it. Only experience we had till date is projects and presenting it to professors. But when you're providing a real life value for a client or a customer, the feedback they give you, and you going back to the drawing board and trying to figure out how to solve the exact problem they have, or trying to modify the services to cater it to them, is like the whole process is only when you're in an incubator or an accelerator like this, that environment and all, you get accustomed to working at such stress levels, about 5-6 calls a day, and like many product demos and stuff like that.
But who handles each other's stress? I mean, Abhilash or Rishith? I mean, I know Rishith makes some candles very romantic and must be making you very happy with the incense in the room, right? I think Vanya, who's the factor who calms everybody down in this organization?
I would say that's me, actually.
Yeah,
I think all the boys, they're like kids. Aren't they like little kids there? So how tell me typical day, like Anantha said, right now, on a lighter note, I mean, was it already difficult in a sense? These guys are all energetic, talking stuff. Is it important to ground these guys down? Are they all talking science fiction?
No, I think all of us have pretty high energy levels and we sort of vibe off each other. I think all of us balance each other out that way pretty well. And
That's interesting.
Yeah, we resonate.
So candles, I know Rishith loves candles. He's already sold me candles, a little side business for him, right?
I'm just diversifying my
diversifying his interest and portfolio. So you take Frizzle, you get free candles, tortoises, turtles, yeah, for sure. I'm not joking, by the way, right? So
a new business model.
It's a new business model. Yeah, we don't give other gifts except these things, right? Brilliant. So Abhilash, what easy question, right? Okay. Yeah. PES has helped you. I mean, on an engineering perspective, Rishith and you are from that university actually, and have done very well there, right? Do you get engineering support in terms of hires? What about hiring? Do you get to hire people from there? Would you like to hire? What type of quality people do you want to hire? Are you looking out? Anantha, Vanya, you can also talk about the business hires. Let's start with the tech hires quickly.
One thing that we realized, right? All the four of us have interned before we started off this company at multiple places like Red Bull, QMath, and whatnot. One thing we realized is we ourselves weren't dedicated, right? And the thing is, when you do not have dedicated hires, you do not get the vision of the company out, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the talent that is going to define whether the company grows, right? You can have an excellent candidate, you can have an excellent hire, but at the end of the day, if he doesn't resonate with Frizzle's vision, there's no point having him on board. Right. And that is what we take into hiring, be it business interns, which Anantha will tell you about, even in tech interns, right? And it's hard, right? It's hard because till now we develop everything by ourselves. The four of us, we develop everything ourselves. Now getting tech interns to build from there, kind of hard because let me be honest, it is kind of like our baby, right? Everything we built from scratch. And it's hard to pass that on, right? To basically help them understand that, this is what it is. This is the core of what we are building, and that is the hardest part of getting tech.
The training,
right? But at the end of the day, we do not mind that. As long as he resonates with the vision of the company, we'll be more than happy to train him for the next 1 or 2 years.
I mean, Vanya, I would be happy to have a few more women come in and do this seriously as engineers. You know what I mean, Vanya? Wouldn't you be happy? Are you looking out? Are you hiring for engineers from for women coming in and working with you?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of women women engineers actually applying, and I think our team is pretty diverse that way. There is a good balance between both women and men, and the talent is pretty equal on both ends. We look more on the talent aspect of it, and I think we're currently in the process of building a very strong team which we can really, rely on.
Okay, go on. Anantha, you wanted to add about the business teams, hiring business people.
Yeah.
Are you hiring at this point of time, Anantha? Rishith, are you also hiring for your department?
So we're not actively hiring, but whenever a thing does come up, we do look for the roles that we need. An example would be we needed a business development intern to work with us, identify, various use cases and a few verticals we're trying to look at, maybe get a new fresh set of eyes to see, how it pans out. A person who could do some footwork and talk to a lot more hotels and, even other places that we can't do on a daily basis due to a few other arrangements. But one thing I'd like to add to what Abhilash said, the fact that they have to resonate with the vision is I'll step back into time a little bit. So we had this IoT intern working with us, he was helping me build the device from scratch. So the one thing I'm proud to say is everything is built by us from scratch here itself. So we had an IoT intern helping us, solder and do some research on, what are the sensors and stuff like that. This might shock you, but the IoT intern was from a CSE background working on sensors with me. So it's not the fact that he had the qualification of a CSE student, but it's the fact that he had the vision that, Frizzle with these hardware devices can work. It's the fact that he was ready to experiment. And we had no problem working and training him for about 2-3 months was just his training period. And that turned out pretty well because he did a lot of good work for us. So again, it doesn't really matter what the person's good at. It's the first thing we try to look at if we're hiring is, does the person actually understand what Frizzle's trying to do? Do they understand the novelty and can they add to that? So there have been many cases where we tried to work with few people, but instead of, adding to the tech suite, they want to redesign it to work in their vision. So that is one major problem that we've come up with.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, because I sat through a meeting in the afternoon with somebody who was actually trying to sell his vision of what my business is instead of my vision. It was very weird.
That happens. So same thing applies to, business interns as well. We try to actively look for people, especially for the business side of things. Having a good understanding of the product is really important before you go and try to sell or before you go and try to talk to anybody. Otherwise, without that, there's no point. So I feel exactly the same points as Abhilash told. Having the drive and the vision for what we stand for is the most important. Then comes their, ability to sell or ability to talk or something like that.
Yeah, brilliant, man. I mean, and guys watching this, if you're a VC, please come meet them. Please support them in any which way you can. At least a meeting would be nice. If not for the cash always helps. And for the corporations, do check them out because they've really built something rugged and beautiful. And like they said, they can also do SaaS for you, right? So easy question. Okay, easy question. What books or documentaries would you recommend? I'm going to start off with Rishith. Rishith, documentaries, movies that you recommend, or would you suggest go try candle making? Everything else is boring.
Yeah, so I'm more of a sci-fi person, so I would rather suggest.
I hear you, man. I'm sci-fi too. Go on.
So Interstellar, there's one. Then Matrix, there's one more.
Wow.
Probably if Star Trek, who can forget that?
I'm glad you said that. Guys, go check it out. I'm sure if you haven't checked out Star Trek, check out the 60s series too. It's brilliant. Right? Rishith, is that it? Tell us about your candle making quickly.
So I think us being co-founders, we usually have a strong vision behind why we're building.
Yeah.
And I'd like to explain why I started the candle making vision.
Please.
So this was back in, I think, in Diwali, and I'd gone to someone's house, and I was surprised to see the mood swing that I got because of this. I know whose
mood was swinging. It's perhaps Anantha's mood swinging there. Go on. That's how you got into it. That's so nice of you. That's so sweet.
The candle is what. So
that's so sweet of you.
What that got me. So I'm like, okay. So I thought for like a month. Then finally for New Year's, if it's Shubh Avsar mein chalo kuch bechte hain. So that was
your first customer. That was the interesting thing. Right?
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
I am proud to say that. Yeah.
We're going to remember that when you're a unicorn,
exactly.
Okay? And you're going to fund me. Right? Remember that. Right. Yeah, so Vanya, go on. Homemade candles. You want to? Okay, you can sell that too. Tell the name. Tell its brand too. What is its brand name?
Plug.
Homemade Candle Co. Homemade Candle.
Okay, great.
You can find me on Instagram.
We'll do another D2C on them, D2C project on them. One year, go for it.
Yeah, so I used to be a avid reader when I was back in school. I read the entire Harry Potter series, Percy Jackson series, all the fantasy series, and I was mainly into fiction back then. But now I'm slowly moving into nonfiction and kind of trying to understand what the world is out there. So one of the books
Brilliant.
which I'm currently in the middle of reading is something called The Lean Startup.
Uh-huh.
And I'd recommend like all of us to actually go through that at least once, because some of the principles, some of the analogies, case studies they give, you can learn a lot from other startups' mistakes or successes. And I think reading their experiences helps us a lot, grow as individuals and as a startup.
And Lean Startup, is that the only book you recommend apart from Percy Jackson and Harry Potter?
I mean, that's the one that immediately came to mind. So
no problem. That's
then-
amazing. I'm glad you both, all of you are readers. Abhilash, do you read like them? Now it's all a lot of pressure building up. Right? Go for it. Huh?
See, I can tell that anyone who has known me in my childhood can tell that I hate reading books. And as any kid, my dad and me always used to go to Sapna or those bookstores that exist. I used to always tell, buy this book, buy this book. First day, buy it, read 2 pages, and it's locked up here, full with dust. Not even kidding, right? I'm not a person.
Abhilash, give it to me.
I'll give it to you, actually. Right, I read a lot. I used to buy a lot of books. I never used to read anything.
Okay.
But I'm more of a movie person, right? And right now, my family hates it, but I love horror movies. Right? I'm
Why
into
not?
that. Yeah, why not? Right? I mean, the Conjuring, Annabelle kind of movies. And recently,
What's it with you engineers, man? I'm saying you're into all this hardcore shit. Why is that?
I don't know. I think it's for me personally, it's more of the excitement that I get while watching it. Right? It's not a thrill. It's not a thrill. It's just something very. For me, it's like, so I'm a religious person, right? And for me, it's like if good exists, there has to be evil. And for me, watching that movie is like know about the evil.
So it's like in engineering there are binaries.
Exactly.
Similar.
For every good, there's
understand
an evil, right? Exactly. And that's what I do. But now slowly, not even kidding, slowly, even though I hate reading, with every business development thing that we do, reading up different companies, reading up different funding news, now it's come to a point where I'm sending articles to these 3 people, news articles, media articles, because I didn't read those.
You're the current affairs and horror guy. I got it.
Yeah,
I got it.
And it's come to a point like, so every day there's a new unicorn coming up. I can't even
you can't miss those.
You can't miss those, right? So I think one movie or series that I would recommend is what I recently finished. It's called as Archive 81. It's on Netflix. It's an amazing horror series. I suggest that.
Okay, great. Which one is that again?
Archive 81.
Archive 81. Okay, on Netflix. I've seen that. Anantha, over to you, my dear friend. And we're going to call it a close with a tortoise grunt. Go on.
Maybe another time. So books, I don't read a lot, but when I do, I read more of those. I don't want to call them self-help books, but they're more of, I'll give you an example. 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. That's a book. That's one of the first books I actually read. And that really taught me a lot of things, how to start and, how not to, give up and stuff like that. And there's another book, I'm pretty sure all of you have seen it because it's become a meme right now. Subtle Art of Not Giving a Beep.
Got it. Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Yeah, I know it.
Oh, we can say that? Okay, we can say that. That's fine.
Because that's a book, man. You can't do anything. It's just the book.
Yeah. So that book, many people call it overrated, but honestly, it taught me how not to overthink. Ask the 3 of my co-founders here. I overthink everything. And that one book has actually helped me a little bit on that. So books, those are the only 2 recommendations I can give. Other ones are like Around the World in 80 Days and things like that. And those fun reads. But movies and documentaries, I just watch whatever comes on my recommended.
Abhilash, you were saying something. Was it something revealing?
Yeah, no, see, Vishal, more than the movies and books that have been influencing us, right? I think it's that 1.5 years we have spent up in that small cabin doing our work. That is the biggest influence we have had. The 4 of us that we have had the killer urge to leave the room every time becomes humid because it's stuck in them. Actually, you can see Anantha sitting in the room.
It's about 10 by, it's a 10 by 10, no?
About, yeah, I think it's 12,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. But hats off, man. I mean, we have been able to accomplish so many things in that one room, the four of us. And I'm proud to say that, and I'm pretty sure the three of us can coincide with this.
And I'm
100%
proud to have
also.
met you in that room too. Let's do a Homa for that room kind of thing. But
We should.
besides the point, guys, thank you so much, Vanya, Abhilash, Anantha, Rishith.
Thank you, Vishal.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you for having us.
this is Frizzle Weather. By the way, watch this on Spotify. It's available on Spotify too as Pebble. Okay, Pebbles by Co-Create. And I'm your host, Vishal Krishna. And I'm going to call it a sign off. But there are a lot of people who are saying great work. The Vijay Raghava, Mohammad Rafiq, Shrikar Madhu, all of them say that you guys are doing great. Obviously, you're getting a lot of love. And I hope that positivity continues to 2022, continues to grow beyond 2022.
Thank you, Vishal.
Wish you all the best. Let it be sunny. And let it rain. Let it rain. Let Frizzle rain. By the way, guys, Frizzle means fry, you know?
No, forecasting drizzle.
Correct. There you go. Frizzle means forecasting frizzle.
Drizzle.
There you go.
If you want to stay away from the drizzle, get Frizzle.
That's the way. That's beautiful, guys. So have a good one. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
so
Vishal,
much,
for
Vishal.
having us.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.